Welcome to the Community Producers. I'm Andrina Kasholti for Shaw TV from the beautiful Comox Marina. Today we've got a diverse lineup for you. We've got eagles, we've got museum stories, we've got stories about Olympic gold medalists that are local from the Comox Valley. We've got stories about newspapers and stories about writing books and meeting an author, and a story about biking. Mark Hanley is our community producer for this first story about Mars Wildlife Recovery Center. Staff and volunteers get up close and personal with eagles and other creatures that need help.
It is almost impossible to see an eagle up close and personal. Unless, of course, wildlife rescue is a part of your daily routine.
You love me? I love you.
Miss Hyacinth is an ambassador for the Mars Wildlife Rescue Center, and therefore she is a permanent resident. The preference is always, of course, to return the birds to the wild, but sometimes that just can't happen.
We call her Miss Hyacinth. She is a small female bald eagle. She was found in Hyacinth Cove on Quadra Island. It'll be coming up 4 years soon. This hatch season she'll be 4 years old. Her nest actually fell apart in a storm and she was found on the ground, and we normally return the baby eagles, if healthy, to their nests. But her nest was destroyed and she had 5 fractures in one wing, and that's very severe damage.
While still being dangerous, Miss Hyacinth has learned to be with people. But the staff and volunteers here at the Wildlife Rescue Center work with truly wild birds regularly, like this recent mature bald eagle who ended up in Reg's arms.
Yeah, so that bird was actually a high force impact, got hit by a pickup truck, and we were called for rescue probably 7 o'clock in the evening, and luckily it was close to my home, so I responded directly from home. They thought its wings were broken. Its wings were actually okay, but it had a dislocated back toe, which is the halix, and that is also called a killing toe, so very important for predators. So he has his foot splinted to a tennis ball, which is providing support, letting the tendons kind of come back tight again. And we'll try again in another couple of days, take that apparatus off, see if he can walk properly, and then hopefully short order after that, back to the wild.
Of course, not all work at Mars is exciting as this. The new hospital and numerous outbuildings have been built by volunteers with donations from the community.
We've got about 850 hours of volunteer time just literally in the last 6-7 months. It's involved up to 28 different volunteers. The lowest amount of volunteering is 3 hours. The most is over 200 hours.
And all that work for just one building. And there have been thousands of hours of time and other community sponsors, including Marine Harvest, Cumberland Rotary, Cumberland Ready Mix, and Daybreak Rotary. All of this effort is paying off, even with difficult or challenging patients. Wow, that was an amazing experience. The Mars Wildlife Rescue Center is still not able to have visitors, but they always welcome more volunteers and sponsors. Check them out. At the Mars Wildlife Rescue Center in the Comox Valley, I'm Mark Hanley.
What's white and gold and a little chilly? Well, we're very proud of Cassie Sharpe, our gold medalist who has trained at Mount Washington, and she's now coming back to the Comox Valley to show us her gold medal.
We are here at Mount Washington for a very special presentation being made to Cassie Sharpe, the gold medalist from here in the Comox Valley who just competed at the Pyeongchang Olympics in South Korea. It's been an amazing competition over 2 weeks, and Canada did better than they've ever done before with a final medal count of 29, and one of them was Cassie's gold medal.
Yeah, I feel like me and Teal and Carly and Spencer, we were all out there repping Mount Washington because you grow up in such a beautiful place. You grow up with so much love and support all around you that it's hard not to talk about it. So having Mount Washington and having being able to talk about it and give the mountain some exposure that it deserves because it's an incredible hill, it was really nice.
Let's talk about Mount Washington and what that impact was on your life.
I mean, moving here, I got right into skiing around 8 years old, and I don't think that I would be skiing without Mount Washington. I don't think I'd be skiing without being on Vancouver Island, so it's definitely shaped my career. I feel like I had a lot of love for the sport, and I had a lot of love for what I was doing, and I think that when people told me I couldn't do what I wanted to do and I couldn't push to win a gold medal, it was always just to do it anyways, you know, like push past the people that aren't maybe supportive of your dream and just go out and do it.
I'm Mary Ruth Harris. Thanks so much for joining us.
We're going to take a short break now, but please do stick around. We've got plenty more interesting community stories coming up.
Thanks to the support of the Comox Valley Community Foundation, Cumberland Recreation has purchased universally accessible toys for our Parent and Taught Gym program.
Sue Vince is our next community producer, showing us people biking to work. 2 physiotherapists at the new hospital that bike all the time, and they love it. Sometimes in good weather, sometimes not in good weather.
I cycle because I like it. It makes me feel good.
I feel exhilarated.
Joy rides her bike from the Nymph Falls area, and Nikki cycles from Royston. Their bikes are different and their goals are varied. So why are they on their bikes?
My name is Nikki Richardson. I'm a physiotherapist at Comox Valley Hospital. I have just started using an electric bike to help with my commute to work and all my shopping needs for minor shopping. I live in Royston, so it's a decent commute.
My name is Joy Leaf, and I'm a nana and a wife and a casual physiotherapist here at the Comox Valley North Island Hospital. I feel like I'm doing a little tiny bit of my part in keeping the environment clean, but I think it's just a healthy lifestyle to have.
Joy's bike route to work has changed from the old hospital location to the Comox Valley North Island Hospital. This change has introduced her to some new commuting challenges.
Well, there's a lot more traffic this way, so it's going to be a change for me. We'll just see how it goes.
Nikki is just returning to riding her bike and has a few concerns as well.
I'm very concerned about being safe. I have some streamers because I think things moving is an additional help. I have the strobe lights, lots of reflective clothing. Very important to have this helmet. I have glasses so that the wind and the grip doesn't get in your eyes. I have gloves, and my high visibility gloves show my hand signals well.
Although both Joy and Nikki recognize there are some cycling challenges, they focus on the benefits and the fun that comes from riding a bike.
I was looking for a helmet when I got one of my new bikes, and I saw this one and I said, I I love it. This is this is me. It's fun. It makes me laugh when I put it on, and I think it makes some people smile when they see it.
I love it. I'm glad I bought it, and it certainly gets me out more knowing that I can have help with the hills now.
I'm pretty much a fair weather rider, but I will register for Bike to Work Week. I think it's a really good time to encourage people and show them that it's not actually a big deal to do, and that they don't have to do it every day if they don't want to. They can be fair weather riders as well.
So I shall be doing it on occasion, but you'll see me as much around town doing my shopping and visiting people.
For coffee, that's the most fun because that's the reward after riding.
Joy and Nikki's common reason to be on bicycles is also the top reason why people are on bikes.
I cycle because I like it.
I feel exhilarated.
Our next story is from the Campbell River Art Gallery, and it's Poetry Meets Multimedia, a story of Indigenous peoples.
It's a great pleasure to be able to welcome you into the space, into our new exhibition, Recover All That Is Ours, featuring the work of 4 Indigenous artists and 2 Indigenous poets. This context of artworks is curated by Shannon Webb Campbell, a Mi'kmaq curator from Newfoundland, who is also a poet and a writer. We welcome you to come into the space, look around, listen to the sounds, look at the video art, and look at the wonderful photography, and read the poems on the walls, and enjoy.
Judy Murakami is our next community producer, and she'll be sharing with us the story of how did the word community newspaper get started.
As with all self-made people, Danny Zambilowitz started a newspaper because he needed a job.
I needed a job. That's probably the most honest answer. I came here with certain skills from the big city, from cities Montreal and Toronto, and I arrived here in '93. And basically I'd always been some kind of a writer, editor. I'd never published a newspaper. I didn't have a lot of experience with newspapers, but I'd written articles and reviews, and especially in college newspapers and so on. And I'd done a lot of editing, professional editing, and writing, copywriting. So basically, it was an attempt to use the skills that I had to try and create some income here. And I noticed that there wasn't an alternative publication, so I always enjoyed the alternative weekly newspapers in urban centers like Toronto and Vancouver.
How do you make a living from a paper that I can pick up anywhere for free?
Who says I make a living?
Oh, well, I don't know.
It's a humble living, and the newspaper is completely financed by advertising. And the advertising scene changes, and it has changed a lot, as everybody knows. It's a tough time for print media, and that's true of the word as well, of course. I have a history of dealing with alternative newspapers. This is from Montreal in the 60s. It's a newspaper called Logos, alternative underground newspaper. And I helped distribute them at the time in the late 60s. And I brought a whole bunch home with me as souvenirs. So the word comes out of that tradition, sort of alternative weekly newspapers. Most cities in North America have one. Of course, the Georgia Strait is the well-known one in Vancouver. And so I thought try and create something like that here. The focus of the alternative press is usually it's progressive, so progressive stories, politically progressive, dealing with social issues, very much arts and culture, and very, very local. In August of 2001, I started the Island Word. Basically I'd never produced a newspaper, or published a newspaper before, and just thought I would try it. A friend of mine named Alan Gear actually provided me with the software to do layout, and without that I wouldn't have been able to do it, so I thank him for that. And so we started in August of 2001. September of 2001 was a major incident, of course, 9/11, and so the third issue of the Word, this is the third issue, which actually covered, that's how we dealt with 9/11, and there's all kinds of stories. There's an article by Jean Dugal, who wrote for many years in the newspaper about having a Muslim relative, which was a wonderful point of view at that time when people didn't really know what was going on, and so we did a number of articles in that issue.
So if people want to learn more about the Word, where do they go to find this?
Where do they find the Word? The Word itself it comes out every month, so the first Friday of every month it'll be in stores, restaurants, cafes, institutions, especially in the Comox Valley, so Cumberland, Courtenay, and Comox. We also distribute about 30% of our run in Campbell River and some of the areas in between. Some of them go out to the islands, Denman and Hornby especially. So it's out there. There are places in downtown. So cafes, I guess, in downtown Courtenay probably would be key places to find the paper.
And the Sid Williams Theatre?
And the Sid Williams Theatre, absolutely. Sure, all the downtown institutions, the library, Edible Island often has lots left over, or a few. And the website is islandword, www.islandword.com.
So if you want to find out what's going on that isn't in your local paper, you can go and find a free copy in the theater, restaurants, grocery stores. They're all around the Comox Valley and in Campbell River. From downtown Cumberland, this is Judy Murakami for Shaw TV.
Next, our community producer is Judy Murakami, and we are going to meet an author, local author, who's written a fictional account of a terrible time in Canadian history, the internmentship of the Japanese Canadians.
Most writers write about something that they know well. But for Kunio Yamagishi, he wrote about the internment process in Canada, which he actually didn't go through. So for him, it was writing a totally historical fiction. So Kunio, tell me about this book that you've written. You're a first-time author, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Well, this is a story about a Second World War Japanese immigrant to Canada who went through the internment camp, and after staying for 43 years in Canada, he finally decided to go back to his country to reunite with his wife and 3 sons he left, and he has never seen since.
Now, usually people write about what they know, but you didn't go through the internment process, did you?
No, I didn't. Well, I learned the internment camp after I came to Canada. It was a deplorable incident for Japanese Canadians, and I thought I should write about something about internment, and this is a fruit of that thought.
Now, the story is riveting because I was hooked from the very beginning.
Thank you.
But I found some of the incidents very dark. And you seem like such a happy person. So how do you go into those dark places?
Very solitary older Japanese gentleman who came to Japanese consulate general in Toronto to renew the passport. And that image etched in my mind for a long time. And I thought, this is the image I have to use. Since Japanese internment camp was a dark history of the Canadian Canada, and I thought it's just a perfect image I have to use for it.
Now, I actually haven't finished the end of the book, but is it going to be positive, or are you going to keep me in suspense?
It's very poignant story. The internment camp itself was a poignant incident for all Japanese Canadians. And the ending of the story, I don't tell you right now so that you can enjoy. But there are lots of suspense, and there are lots of unknown factors, which I hope reader can enjoy that.
Now, the Comox Valley is featured in your book because a lot of the Japanese Canadians worked in Cumberland in the coal mines. How long have you actually lived here in the Comox Valley?
I lived more than 15 years in Comox Valley so far.
Did you do any research here in Cumberland?
Yes, I went to a Cumberland Museum and a Courtney Museum, and I dug up all kinds of periodicals, newspaper to write this story. And I read 5 major studies about Japanese internment camp, and that those helped me a lot to write this story.
So if you'd like to buy the book, you can always go to Laughing Oyster, Blue Heron, Cumberland, or you can get it online at Amazon. It's available for the US, the UK, and Canada. From the Comox Valley, this is Judy Murakami for Shaw TV.
We're heading up to Campbell River to the museum for the Saweetie permanent exhibition on the First Nations stories from British Columbia.
The museum at Campbell River's permanent exhibits are a chronological walk through time of the human history of the northern Vancouver Island area. So when you walk into the first space, it starts with an origin story relating to a local First Nations family. From that area, you go into our First Nations exhibits. The First Nations have inhabited this region according to archaeological record for 10 to 15,000 years. We decided in our space to do a visible storage style exhibitry where we could feature some of the ceremonial gear and everyday items of the First Nations of this region. There are over 40 First Nations in the northern Vancouver Island region. That's a challenge to tell that story in a very small space. There are 3 main linguistic groups, the Coast Salish, the New Channels, and the Kwakwaka'wakw. So in the museum's collection, there are examples from each of these groups. One of the highlights in the First Nations gallery is an exhibit that we call Treasures of Saweetie. The museum worked with and negotiated with a First Nations family who owned an origin story to exhibit the story of their ancestor Saweetie in the undersea world. The other aspect of this particular installation is that we wanted to feature some of the more prominent Kwakwaka'wakw First Nations artists in our region. So over a period of years, the masks were commissioned for this installation. So the intent was to do 2 things: to share one family's prerogative and create understanding about that, and to illustrate that this is a culture that is very much alive and present today.
Thank you to all the community producers on this show. For community producers on Shaw TV, I'm Andrina Kusholti.